Welcome to the Clangers Pod. This is where three old road testers and serial crap car collectors witter on about cars from the late 1990s to the early 2000s, the models which are stuck in between being classics and bangers. They are the Clangers.
And I guess we should say who we are. We've done a pilot of this podcast, and it did surprisingly well. We didn't really know it had gone out, but lots of people listened to it. But lots of people kind of wanted to know who we are. So I'm Mike Askew.
I'm Craig Cheetham.
And I'm Tom Barnard.
Now, we all worked together on an Auto Express magazine in the late 90s and early 2000s, which means we pretty much drove every car that was new to the market then. And we've amassed plenty of stories. Now, some of those people involved in the stories are no longer in the business, so I think we're pretty safe to start recounting a lot of them.
So this week we'll be talking about the shoe-eating qualities of the Peugeot 206, why it's the cheapest car in the world to run, unless you're Mike. Shall we start off by finding what Craig's bought this week? Any Peugeot 206s you bought this week?
Yeah, I've sold one. I've just I scrapped my. Oh, sorry, not scrapped. I've swapped my 206 for my old Jaguar X Type, which kind of one of them was a
straight swap,
new, and the other was a Peugeot 206. Straight swap, yeah. So obviously somebody wanted a 206 that much because they knew it was coming up in our podcast and was obviously going to be next week's future classic. And
can we just rewind a bit? Your old X Type.
Yeah. I've had 7 of them, but this was I only sold this one about 2-3 months ago, and it's come back to me because the chap wanted something smaller and cheaper to run because his daughter's learning to drive. So it came back. He'd used it for his family holiday. He was very happy with it, and came back to buy another old banger from me. So that's gone. The 206 is gone. The X Type has arrived, and I've also sold a Vauxhall Corsa B that I rescued, and a Rover 25. So yeah, and I'm potentially buying a Citroen AX at the weekend with the proceeds.
Oh, now you see, Rover 25s and Citroen AXs. Now you're talking my language, because I had like most of the motoring journalists at the time, or at some time in their career, I owned an AX GT, and it is still to this day the favourite car I've ever had my name on the registration document of. It was fabulous, and I owned it for I think 3 years, which was quite a long time to own a car for me when I was a student. But yeah, they're strangely popular among motoring journalists. So, who's had one? So Andy Pringle works at Auto Express. He had one, I think.
No one will know if you say Andy Pringle. You've got a Mosh.
Sorry,
exclamation mark. Has to have an exclamation mark after it.
Yep. Chris Harris. I think he's still got one with steel wheels. Steve Fowler had one brand new and got very upset because it had steel wheels, and in the brochure it had alloys. Paul Chatterton, who's now a PR chap at McLaren, but was at Auto Express as well. Matthew Hayward, who's at Evo now, and I think he sold his to Chris Harris. So, yeah, there are a good few. It is one of those cars that motoring journalists love.
I had one too. I had an AX Chicago with the Chicago skyline picked out on the both front doors.
Dark blue, weren't they?
No, they were gunmetal grey.
Oh, I thought they were dark blue.
Really good. Didn't it have a very, very strange braking arrangement, very cheap, because to convert it to right-hand drive, instead of kind of rerouting all the kind of bits and bobs, it just had was it a series of levers or something?
It was a big tube, but the tube was made of kind of spaghetti, so it kind of twisted. It was so thin because it's so lightweight that you pressed it down, it took all the feel out the pedal. There was, when I was at university and I had my AX, there was a French student who came over in his AX GT, and I drove his left-hand drive one and almost went through the windscreen because it was a completely different car. It was so much better. Talking of AXs, that was the where the kind of the special edition thing. Do you remember, like when there were Saxos and 106s, they all had special edition names and ridiculous special edition names. So here's a little challenge for you. I don't know if you're going to tell me the answer or if we'll let the listeners come up with the answer. So which isn't a Citroen AX special edition? Okay. Highlight, Salsa, Echo Plus, and Colette.
Can I have a guess? Because I'm not as much of an AX anorak as you two.
You can have a guess.
I'm going to say Colette, because I'm sure that's a Micra.
It is, yeah, it is indeed.
Yeah, correct.
Although this has reminded me that we missed a gem on our K11 cast last time, because uh, the K11 was also very good at having silly special edition names. The best of which was the Nissan Microwave.
Mm. And Dot, which was,
Yeah,
I think, was a drug reference from somebody in the Nissan marketing department. But there was no Colette, was there?
not the K11. That was K10.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that would
Black
be
and silver.
nice, wouldn't it? A nice two-tone K11. Perhaps you should make one, Craig, from your
Well,
white
K11
car.
Colette.
Yeah,
The colour schemes is the K10, but
that'll confuse people at
it
car
will, won't
meets,
it?
wouldn't it? The nerds will be looking at it going, "I'm sure that was only on the K10."
You give me an idea now. If I could find a silver one, because they're quite common, and then just paint the top half of it black.
And
Yeah,
put
I might
gold
do that.
stripes down it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the Rover 25, that's another car that you're quite fond of, isn't it, Tom?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Rover 25, not so much, but the Rover 200 was a great thing. I bought one from you, a 211, no less, which was a real rarity, thinking that the head gasket wouldn't go because of the smaller K series were meant to be more reliable, but inevitably the head gasket went. But that was a nice car. And do you remember you came and helped me buy one when I worked for Hyundai?
I do. It was blue, wasn't it?
No, it was silver.
Oh,
But
both.
when I worked for Hyundai, it was during scrappage.
Yes.
And I had this bright idea that what I would do for the journalists is I would deliver them a test car, which was a crap old banger for the first half of the week. And then once they're thoroughly sick of that car, I would deliver them a nice new Hyundai and say, well, this is what the people who are experiencing scrappage would have. They'd go from this terrible old car to this nice new shiny one. So I went to the auctions and bought this Rover 200. I think it was a 214 with a big dent in the door for 400 quid. And we drove it back. And I think the problem was that it was a bit too good. So so it wasn't the contrast that I wanted between this crap old bang for £400 and this brand new car. So I went out and bought a Maestro instead, of Ledbury Maestro, if you remember those.
I do remember that.
So the Ledbury Maestros, for people who don't know, were after the Austin Rover or the Rover Group had stopped building the Maestro, they sold the body shells and some of the kits to a where was it, Craig? Was it Hungary? Was it
I can't fully remember.
Bulgaria?
I know it was a very
Yeah.
charitable thing that you did. Yeah.
Yeah, so they sold all these kits, and then they didn't want them either. So they were bought back
Sorry,
by a company,
we had the Ledbury cars. Yes, Bulgaria. Sorry, I'm
Bulgaria. Yeah.
veering off on a tangent. Yeah, yeah.
So they this company in called Ledbury Garages, I think, bought back all these Maestro kits and built them and sold them as Britain's cheapest car. And you could have them right hand drive as a conversion, but it meant that all the mirrors were a bit funny and there was no sun visor and strange things like that. But anyway, it was generally an awful thing. But that felt quite charming and classic as well. So then to kind of get the happy medium of awfulness, I went and bought a Metro diesel, which was horrific. It was really bad. So that was perfect. So yeah, the Maestro strangely had a failed head gasket, and the Rover 214 was fine.
Well, the R3, as the 214 is known officially, I actually co-wrote a book on that with a chap called John Batchelor, who I saw this evening. John is the chairman now of the Rover 200/400 Owners Club. And the book, it's now officially out of print because, according to John, we sold the last copy last week. So it's as easy to find as Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. But if you want to know the inside story of the Rover R3 from the people that built it, the engineers that were at Longbridge at the time, then you can go and find one on eBay for about £1,000, and your life will never be the same.
Was it a big seller, that book?
I think we printed about 200. I'll have to check with John.
Oh.
So it's a riveting read.
200,000 or 200?
About 200, Mike. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
It's a fairly limited market, though, isn't it? You know.
Am I going to find it in motorway services? On that sort of table in the middle of,
No, it's not that. We didn't print enough for it to be remaindered.
Okay.
I must say, I told off Craig last week, and it wasn't justified.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember that bit. When were you telling Craig off?
Well, I don't think we told you, but he was saying that his Micra was a Capital Radio competition prize.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So I rang up Craig and I said, "Well, I think you need to correct it, because that wasn't the Capital Radio Competition Prize. The Capital Radio Competition Prize was a Fiat Multipla, which I bought for him from the now dear departed Letchworth Motor Auctions.
Mm.
But it turns out that Craig does have two cars which were Capital Radio Competition prizes,
Of course he does.
and it was a complete coincidence. Craig, do you want to tell the story of how you found out that your Multipla was a Capital Radio Competition prize? Because
So I was looking
mad.
for Fiat Multipla photos for a magazine feature that I was writing, that were better than the ones that I could take in my own car, because they were obviously pro shots done by a highly professional photographer. So I was googling through Fiat's media library, and there was my car in sitting there. It's beautiful. Exploit yellow is the colour, sort of urine shade.
Yeah, I remember
And there was
that. Yeah.
that, and there was a red one, a blue one, and a silver one, all lined up with the lucky winners who'd won them in a Capital Radio competition. And I had no idea when I bought this car that the original owner had won it prize. However, where the Micra, someone cherished it and loved it and kept it for all of its life. If you look back at the history of the Multipla, they got rid of it after 4 months. So, yeah, I think they just took the money and ran.
Yeah, yeah, but it is weird. In fact, if you Google Capital Radio Car Competition Prize, you can still see pictures of your Multipla with Chris Tarrant leaning against it in front of Capital Radio's headquarters,
That's right,
can't
it
you?
was Karen, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, wow.
What else have you been up to, Craig?
I
Rustival?
went to Rustival at the weekend. Yeah, Rustival is a car show unlike any other, and I mean this in the most fabulous way. You can literally turn up in absolutely anything, and you're welcome. Be it a brand new car, be it a clanger, or be it something completely obscure. So like this year, I took my I've got a Mark One Renault Megane, Megane Classic with a boot, 4-door, very rare thing in itself, and the spec is 1.6e Liberté, which is so basic that they took the base model, and to sell it for cheaper than the base model, the dealers then took the rear speakers out and various other bits and pieces. So it's a sub bass. And I thought that, I mean, there are only two of these left on the road in the UK. And I thought, the chances of seeing another one were pretty much nil. And there was the other one at Rustival. So I now know that the two surviving cars are red and green. Mine's the red one. Green one belongs to a really nice chap called Jacob, who's about half my age. And his parents bought it brand new. So there's a great story behind the other one, whereas mine, I came from Eastbourne, from someone who'd given up driving after driving it down the steps at Brighton Pavilion. Accidentally, not on purpose. But yeah, I was parked between a Renault Aventime and a dumper truck. That's the kind of event that Rustival is. It's the friendliest car show I've ever been to. They've actually said that we can go along and do a live podcast there next year. So if by that point we've actually sequenced to the point where we actually, make it work naturally and have the confidence to get there on stage and do a live show, maybe that's our chance to do one.
Okay. You heard it here first.
Does your Megane smell? Because I always had a thing about that sort of era of Renaults had an aroma inside that just made me feel a bit ill. I don't know if it's the glue they used or something. Was it made of old fish? But it really did.
They used to stink like Billingsgate, didn't they? When
it
you
did.
got into them, it was
terrible
awful.
on a hot day. Oh,
I never found them that horrendous, but I mean, I've always had sinus problems, so maybe that's the maybe that's the issue. Although I don't think mine does smell, because it's not actually posh enough to have velour or anything like that. It's literally a plastic dashboard, some cloth seats, a 2-speaker radio cassette, and but you know what? It goes down the road really well, so can't really fault it. It's just basic motoring of a kind that you don't really see anymore.
If you have a Renault from the clanger era, please let us know if it stinks or if it wears off after a while.
Or indeed, if you've murdered anybody, but I think that's a conversation for a separate pod.
The reputation for Renaults being murderers' cars. Yeah.
I've got 5 of them, so I don't know whether that actually says more about me than it should.
Anyway, should we talk about another French car? Because we promised last week that we would talk about this car, and it is the Peugeot 206.
Yes.
So a bit of background to the 206. So I went on the original launch in France, which was in late 1998. So put that into some sort of perspective. It was Britney Spears came out with her first single. There was Bill Clinton was in power, and it was all looking a bit shaky because of the Monica Lewinsky incident. What else happened in '98?
Well, Kate Winslet, Leonardo DiCaprio, they were making out in a Renault of all things on board the Titanic.
As a new software company, I don't know if you heard. I don't know what happened to them after they launched. They were called Google, so they seem to have done all right after that. France won the World Cup at home. I know you're both. Tom's a huge football fan, so he probably remembers that. And why have I got this to read out? Viagra sprung up from nowhere. Why? How come you two didn't get that in the script and I did?
Did you find that hard to say, Mike?
It's because you're the oldest.
Oh, is that right? Is that,
yeah, probably. Yeah.
Just assuming that I need some. Okay, that's fair enough.
So, when I went on the launch, I came back and I thought the car was a bit crap. I think
I remember.
I was a bit disappointed because we were all we loved the 205. We thought it was great. I really didn't like this car. I thought it had like a dead elephant for a dashboard. I thought it rode okay, but I thought the engine was rough. Really, really didn't like it. So I came back with a bit of a grump and said to everyone, it's crap. And then the road testers came along and all drove it in the UK right-hand drive cars and made it car of the year. So
who was road test editor at the time?
I think it was Oliver Marriage.
Oh, okay.
No, it might have been me actually.
I wonder if it's on your watch, Mike. Yes.
But I remember when you came back and everyone was expecting it to be really good, and it was the days obviously before social media or anything. You say you kind of always had. It's quite scary to be a car journalist then because you had to take a punt, didn't you? You had to put your, you had to say, right, this is a 2-star car, it's a 4-star car, without knowing what anyone else was going to say. And I'm pretty sure you wanted to give it 2 out of 5, and I think. I don't know how we based this, but we all kind of said, it can't be that bad. And you said, I'm the one who's driven it, and I don't think it's very good.
But there was a big difference between the left-hand drive ones, which I drove, and the right-hand drive ones, which were they had a excellent feature for getting rid of shoes you don't like.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I think still exists to this day. I mean, Craig, you've driven one recently. So are your shoes intact?
I've actually just thrown them away because the toe of my left shoe got mangled by the steering column, which, again, this is a bit like the Citroen AX. When they switched it from left-hand drive to right-hand drive, they didn't actually move the connection where the steering column goes into the rack because they couldn't, because the location, I think, either of the aircon compressor or the heater box, something like that, would have been having to completely redesign the bulkhead. So instead, they built this contrived angular steering column with 2 universal joints in it that went across the car to go in the other side. And what that meant was there was this rotating universal joint just where your left toe was if you're anything bigger than a size 7. Which, I mean, I'm a size 10, and my toes have suffered many a 206. I remember highlighting this quite often when I worked at Auto Express, and one or two of the other road testers said, well, we don't have a problem with it. What's your issue? But I know you had the same problem, Tom, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's something to do with your driving position or it's just people who have, very small feet. If it's not a problem for them, but certainly it always used to wind me up. And I was like, what's that on my... Oh, yeah, it's the steering column. I'm turning the steering.
Yeah, the other thing that was terrible about them, and there was no excuse for it, Renault was just as guilty with the Clio, was they didn't bother converting the wipers for right-hand drive, which meant that if you're going down the motorway at 70 miles an hour, your passenger has an almost perfect view of the road, and you haven't. You've got this little semicircle that you have to peer through, which is kind of inexcusable, really. I mean, if they can go to all the bother of re-engineering the steering column from one side of the car to the other, surely a wiper linkage isn't that difficult.
That's still a bugbear with Tom now.
It is.
Craig,
I hate it.
And we had a long-term, I'm sorry, it isn't a clanger. We had a long-term Cupra Born, which I've got one now at this moment. And it's got clap hands wipers, but they favour the left-hand side rather than the right-hand side. So when you put them on, as you say, the passenger gets a really nice clear screen to start with, and the driver has to wait there. It's not long, but you have to wait quite a bit. But yeah, that stayed with Tom, that annoyance about wipers.
Yeah, hate it. I had a BMW 5 Series, so an E39 for the geeks out there that had left-hand drive wipers as well, and I almost didn't buy the car because it had those, but I put up with it in the end.
Speaking of left-hand drive cars,
yes, tell
I
us
had
about yours.
I owned a 206. There you go. This is be one of the few times in the Clangers podcast when I can say I bought one of those.
I bet yours was a bit more expensive than my 1.6 GLX, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put this in context. It was I bought a Peugeot 206 Super Cup rally car. I got fired from Dennis, and I think I got 6 months' wages as a kind of.
We should explain who Dennis are for.
Dennis Publishing used to own Auto Express and a magazine called Test Drive, which I launched and was a total disaster. So as a result, I got the boot. So I got some money from when I left there. And instead of doing the sensible thing like paying a bit of my mortgage or fixing the hole in the roof or something, I decided I was going to buy a works rally car. So I did, and it was the biggest money pit in the world. I mean, it was a brilliant car. It was built as a factory car, so it was built by the guys and girls who make the World Rally cars for Peugeot. So it's made in France. It was beautiful. The work of art, the roll cage was absolutely fantastic. It was just a incredibly intricate, very, very strong, all that kind of stuff. It had all the works parts on it. And that was kind of the problem, really, because the drivetrain, so it was a TU engine. It was the engine from the 1.6 XSI. It was pre-GTI when these cars were built. But the standard 5-speed gearbox on a TU engine is like plasticine. It's no good. I mean, it's okay for a road car, but it's hopeless for a competition car.
It's not really okay for a road car, Mike.
It's not.
It's got rid of one.
So what they did, they grafted on a BE gearbox from the GTI 6. So it's a 6-speed gearbox there. But to get the two to work together, you had to have this bell housing which connected the gearbox to the engine, which was only made by Peugeot Sport. And they used to go through those at such an alarming rate because if you had any problem with the gearbox, it would generally end up cracking the bell housing. So that was an enormous cost every time that happened. And the other problem was the GTI 6 was a very long, the 6-speed gearbox from a GTI 6 was really long. So by the time it was installed in a 206, there was about 3 inches of the end of the gearbox casing in the wheel arch. So when you turned the right hand down, you only had like a turn and a half of lock. You had the full kind of 2.5 turns going left. So in a rally car, that was hopeless because you were doing rallies. You'd come into a chicane and you'd look like the worst rally driver in the world because you couldn't put enough lock on. You ended up to sort of drive. So yeah, that cost me a fortune. I think I went through 3 gearboxes and I was well into 5 figures for running that car. It was just, I thought, oh, great, 206, it would be nice and cheap to run. There'd be loads of standard parts on it. No, everything was expensive. The exhaust pipe was 800 quid. Every time it needed some work. Whenever I take it back to the place in Cornwall where I used to have it prepped, they used to phone up and say, well, we need this, that's that. And you think, well, that doesn't sound too bad. And they'd say, I'll do it at mates' rates. And it would be $3,000, $4,000, something like that every time. So I ended up driving it down a hillside in Somerset, on the Somerset stage at Porlock Hill. I don't know if you know Porlock Hill at all, but it's got some big drops on this side. I went over the edge of that. I hit a patch of diesel or gravel or something. And so I spent a year fixing it up, sold it to a bloke in Scotland who drove down to collect it, who crashed it and destroyed it on the first stage. So that poor thing had quite a life.
Properly destroyed it, or
it needed a new shell. So I lost track of what happened to it after that. But
you're not the only person to kill a car on Porlock Hill. Actually, my dad did for our Datsun 100A when I was a kid. Didn't actually bend it or anything. It's just that the hill was too much for the clutch, and we stopped halfway up, but we couldn't go up and we couldn't go down. So we spent an entire afternoon sitting on the side of Porlock Hill waiting for the RAC.
Well, I thought you were going to say something that sort of dropped all its oil from the engine or something. I thought these two stories were going to link up, and you're going to say, yes, it was about 4 years ago that it happened. And it turns out that was the patch of oil that I ended up crashing on. So there we go. Shame it doesn't quite add up.
Well, the other 206s, other than your rally car, that were the performance versions, were a bit soggy, weren't they? I mean, remember the GTI? You remember the 205 GTI, legendary car. Everybody loves them. Now worth £1 million, and the 206 GTI you can pick up for 25 quid at the local auctions because no one wants them. Yeah. I can't remember. I can't remember what was wrong with it. It was just a bit meh, wasn't it?
I think it's because it wasn't a 205. I mean, if you look
Mm.
now, they're actually starting to edge up. They're not as cheap as they used to be, but I think that's because most of the rubbish ones have been crashed, and the ones that are left are actually quite nice.
Yeah, and it's like you said as well. The 306 GTI 6 was amazing, wasn't it? It was
Superb.
so good.
Mm.
That gearbox was beautiful, and even the 106 GTI was a fun thing, wasn't it? So when the
Mm.
206, just like the rest of the car, it was just a bit underwhelming, wasn't it, at the time? But
Mm.
There were some curious 206s though, still, weren't there? Because there was my favourite was the Roland Garros, um,
right,
which
yes,
metallic green with nice sort of tan and green leather interior, green carpets. Yeah, it was really quite a well appointed little thing. And I did a little bit of research here because I know that Roland Garros is the French national tennis stadium, but
Hmm.
up until yesterday, I didn't actually know who Roland Garros was. I assumed, rather naively, that because he was associated with tennis, he was a tennisist. But he wasn't. He was actually a pioneering aviator. Uh, we really should all know a bit more about him because he was the first ally to lose his life in a plane crash. Um, so the end of World War One, you can imagine at the end of World War One, what planes were like. They were contraptions, weren't they? And he
Yeah.
crashed it into a Zeppelin, which is never a wise idea because those things are full of gas. So yeah, that was the end of pioneering aviator Roland Garros. I don't know how the crash occurred. I assume maybe
You,
he got his left foot tangled up in the clutch mechanism, and that was that. But
you think
yeah,
if you crashed into a zeppelin, you think you'd bounce off? It'd be like crashing into a bouncy castle.
Yeah.
but yeah, that was that. So they named a Peugeot 206 after him in tribute, which is
And plenty of other Peugeots since as well, isn't
yeah.
there?
There was a
Yeah.
106, there was a 205 convertible Roland Garros, wasn't there?
Hasn't it switched to Renault now though? Because there's a Renault 5 Roland Garros, isn't there? So
Was
how's
it?
that? Yeah, the new one
Mm.
Sure.
of the
And it's
electric one.
disappointingly blue.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
new 5. There's a Roland Garros there, so he switched. Someone signed.
Oh,
He's done a
maybe
switch.
yeah, I
Mm.
didn't know
Mm.
that. That's a new one
Well,
on me. You see, I'm out of touch with these. So, yeah. And then the,
These
yeah.
the
newfangled
the other
things.
206 that was interesting to a point was the CC, wasn't there? The combs and curlers.
Yeah. Well,
The,
that was
the,
the
the
Yeah.
original hairdressers. Well, it wasn't. It was the it kind of aped the Mercedes SLK in its roof system
yeah.
design.
Yeah. And it was a big fuss at the time, wasn't it? Because the SLK had come out and everyone thought it was fabulous. Everyone thought it was the
Mm.
future and there was going to be an affordable version based on the
Mm.
206. And we all got quite excited. The concept car came out, looked great, which you can't say about all hardtop convertibles, can you? Because
No,
Mm.
the 307 and things like the Focus were awful looking.
and
Um,
the micro CC.
oh dear, dear, yes, yeah. Um, but I remember driving one of those as well. And it was a bit wobbly, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't just wobbly when you had the roof down and you could feel the whole shell flexy,
Mm.
but the roof itself was, I
Yes.
don't know, made of
Yeah.
paper or something, and
It
just went,
wasn't the
"Ooh."
same mechanism as Mercedes used, that's for sure. It was built by the
It
same
was.
people, wasn't it? I think, but
Well,
it
the,
was.
the 206, the actual roof mechanism was built by a French company called Houllier, and the roof mechanism was based on that of the Houllier Intruder concept of 1996. Are either of you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with
No,
it.
So the
no.
Houllier Intruder, it was basically designing a car that nobody asked for and nobody wanted. So they took a Mercedes SLK, obviously intrigued by this roof mechanism attached to it, and they built a concept car that was an SLK, but with a four-wheel drive drivetrain, raised ride height, big plastic cladding on the side, and a retracting convertible roof, which later went on to appear on the 206. And you know, I did think at the time, was it just something like a Volkswagen T-Roc Cabriolet three decades too early? Because who would want? It's a stupid idea, isn't it? Who would want one of those? Who would want a big SUV
Hmm.
convertible with a retracting roof? Certainly, it didn't work out for Julio though. You know the subsequent story after the 206cc or not?
Well,
But
I gather they're not in business anymore.
they
I
are
mean,
no longer in business. So they partnered with Peugeot. The agreement was to do the 206cc and its successor, which is the 207cc. I don't know if they did the 307cc. I'm not so sure as they did because that was quite ugly, wasn't it? But
Hmm.
they did the 206, they did the 207, and quite early on, I mean, the 206cc came out, I think, in 2000. And by about 2001, the warranty claims started coming in. There were people stuck with half open roofs and traffic jams and getting soaking wet and getting rather annoyed with Peugeot. Peugeot obviously was quite upset because of the reputational damage that this caused. And in the end, the number of warranty claims on the roof systems were what threw Heulier under a bus.
Is
Of
that
course,
right?
being something else that they made.
But they did some. There's some stellar work for Peugeot before that, though, didn't they? They were famous for being part of the Group B rally era, weren't they? Didn't they?
They
They
did the
put those.
205 Turbo 16, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my understanding. Interesting, sort of strange coach building companies that built Group B rally cars. There's another one, Craig. Do you know which one it is?
Um,
Tell you the car, Ford RS200.
Reliant.
so RS200 was built by Reliant.
The bodies were built by Reliant. Yeah, I think we should, maybe we'll do a Group B version, a Group B special. Who knows? It's not in the era of the clangers, I know, but there's some really
I think
mad
we
stuff.
probably all love a bit of Group B, though, don't we? I mean, my ultimate dream fantasy car is a Lancia 037. There's
really?
no car that I would rather have. It's just such a stunning looking thing. And I know it will be absolutely terrible to drive. It'll be hot. The clutch will be terrible. The gearbox will be tractor-like. It'll probably throw me backwards into a hedge the first time I go anywhere near a bend. But God, it looks so good, doesn't it?
I think it does. And I think it's one of those things, if you could go back in time, where if you think when Austin Rover were trying to sell off those fields full of 6R4s for 13 grand each, and it took them a year and a half to sell them all, and now they're going for easily £250,000 quid, aren't they? So
I know a guy who bought
of those.
15 of them.
How many?
He's quite a wealthy man these days.
15?
15, yeah. He was he used to be an advisor for classic car auction companies. I'm not going to name him because I think he's still involved in that business and probably wouldn't like people to know how much money he made out of Metro 6R4s. But he bought 15 of them because he thought it might be an idea to put them away for a bit and then wheel them out one at a time at auction, and that's what he did. And you can imagine 250k a time, he did quite well out of them.
And which Jaguar used the Metro 6R4 engine?
The XJ220.
XJ220, yeah.
I went recently, again, somebody else I'm not allowed to name for legal reasons, but I went to the house of a very famous musician to photograph some cars from his personal collection for an auction company. And I got to see inside his car collection barn, which was like nothing else I've ever seen. And one of the first things I saw on my way in was some metallic red XJ220, and a car I've always loved in my favourite colour for a car. I was like, oh, that's really quite special, isn't it? So I sort of said to him, it's lovely, isn't it? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, would you like to see my other two? I've got a blue one and a green one. It's a different world, isn't it? I mean, I have multiple versions of the same car, but they're not Jaguar XJ220s.
Micros.
Jaguar X types.
Is the X type worth an episode, do you think? Have we got enough?
I think
enough.
Do you know why I think it's worth an episode of its own? Because the bloke down the pub will tell you that the X type is a Ford Mondeo, mate. And it isn't. It really, really isn't. It's, I think, 13% commonality. But I know all sorts of really, really, really nerdy facts about Jaguar X types that will probably stop people listening to this pod. So it's up to you guys. I mean, we can do it, or we can suggest that I might actually bore our listeners to death, and that'll be the end of it. It's up to you.
Okay. So are we going to ask our listeners what car we should do next? Yeah. Is that the best plan?
If we get nothing back, we'll do
We'll do the X type. Yeah. Come up with some good ideas, or we'll do the X type. I like it. Yeah. I think we should probably wrap this up, shouldn't we? I think, Craig, you've got to go and pick up some drunk teenagers.
I've got to go and collect some drunk teenagers from the pub, yeah. So I won't be taking the X-Type Indianapolis because I don't want them damaging my Alcantara interior.
Yeah. So please help us to continue the somewhat surprising success of the pilot by liking and subscribing, leaving a review, all those sorts of things. 5 stars would be very nice. And let us know what you want us to talk about next. And you can find us on Instagram now, I believe, Mike. You've done the social media things, haven't you? Where are we?
We're at Clangers Pod on Instagram.
Excellent.
And if you own a clanger, feel free to share it with us on Instagram as well. Or indeed, if you want us to talk about your car, if we've driven it, we've owned it. There's a good chance I've owned it. We can talk about it.
Excellent. Well, thanks for listening, and I will see you chaps next week.
Okay. Bye.